Hello, this is the second video assignment going over inorganic versus organic foods. First, I'm going to go over Dr. Shiva's video. So she's from India, and she was quoted as like the first tree hugger. Essentially, what was happening in India back in the 70s and 80s was these tree logging companies were taking all the trees and leaving less water and less fodder, less fuel, which women were responsible for. The big political issues in India was the land grab. These companies were taking land from the people, starving people of jobs, putting them into poverty. And she started noticing that they were doing this with the farming as well. And with these GMOs, uh, these companies were selling their GMO seeds to these farms, which was putting these farmers in extreme debt and killing them. It was and cotton was the main farming thing that impacted India the most. And her reasoning for why organic versus inorganic was bad was the inorganic cotton created less biodiversity for India because uh, it just became like a big monopoly, and there was zero biodiversity, and there was actually so much cotton in India that they were exporting it to other people. But that did not mean that the people in India were benefiting from this. They were still suffering. And her claim about the reason why there was a famine was because during the British rule, they took all their rice, which left 2 million people dead. And a lot of people use India's famine as a reason why GMO foods are good. But if the British if the British hadn't taken their food, they would have been okay. And so what a lot of people say is that the GMOs are what saved India, but in reality, they didn't change anything other than they had more food. But the British were stealing their food, and what she really wants is to be more biodiversity and more organic plants because it'll scarce the water out a little bit to different places, and that's also because GMO non-organic plants need a lot more water and fertilizer than any other type of plants. And she also goes into detail about America, where 2% of the soil is used for our food, like us to eat, and 8% of the land for growth is used for biofuel and animal feed, and that's usually grown as corn. And with more GMOs taking over India, it's removing other nutritious things like millets from India, which is a great source of protein, which is also vegan as well. So she is for organic products and thinks it will benefit India and everywhere because of the biodiversity, because of their there's no synthetic pesticides sprayed on them. But for Dr. Lumborg, he has a different opinion about organic versus inorganic. His organic claims are people say they're more nutritious and pesticide free, but he thinks they're marketing. They did a study at Cornell University where two people picked organic and they thought it would be more nutritious and they were willing to pay up to 23% more, but it was the same exact piece of fruit. And in 2012, a Stanford study, Center for Health and Policy, compared organic versus non organic, and they both had similar amounts of nutrients. And but he did acknowledge that organic farming does use less energy and fewer greenhouse gases. But organic farming needs more land for the same amount of food. because you have all this extra, so everything's organic, and there's no pesticides, synthetic pesticides spread and everything. So the weeds are just going to eat everything up. And the organic, so he categorized into three different things. So organic milk needs 59% more land compared to inorganic. With meat, it's 82% more land, and wheat is 200% plus more land just for it to be organic. Um, but organics can also have natural pesticides like copper sulfate, which is known to cause liver disease, and pyrethium, which in a study did 3.7% more cases in leukemia. And he also threw out some other random facts there, like he said 20 extra cancer deaths per year are linked to pesticides, which he said you're more likely to get mauled by a cow. So I don't know about that, but we also had some data from the Our World Data website where they said some people may even opt in to pay up to 100% more for organic. And their organic definition was very descriptive. It said there's no GMOs, no synthetic inputs, no fertilizer, pesticides, plant growth regulators, none of that. Uh, they also say conventional agriculture performs better on environmental issues such as land use, greenhouse gases, and pollution. On that website, there was also some data in a chart that I've included in this cost and benefit summary of organic versus non-organic. For the organic, the health pros, organic products won't have any synthetic pesticides on them, but that's synthetic. That doesn't mean it's not synthetic. Organic health pros, another one is also that it helps contribute to a nutritious diet, which is all fruits and vegetables. And this pro from the Mayo Clinic says organic food in certain studies have shown to be more nutrition dense and have more antioxidants, which is different than what a lot of people say, but the Mayo Clinic says it. And my last health pro for organic comes from a website called Only Organic. They also point out there is no artificial preservatives, colors, or flavors in organic food, which is in almost all food now. Now, for some health negatives, pesticides still can be spread on them as long as they aren't synthetic, which we talked about previously. They can cause liver disease, cancer, etc. Now let's go over the environmental impacts of organic versus non-organic. These environmental impacts are from the chart from the ourworlddata.org, and this is the environmental impact. So, organic products in all the categories were worse for the land than the normal agriculture, with the land use and eutrophication, which is the spread of excess nutrients into water, such as nitrogen and phosphorus. And they also said there was no difference between the two in greenhouse gas emissions, except for the fruit, where organic was actually better than the inorganic. And the energy use was really the only pro as for the environmental impacts goes compared to inorganic. And this is the cost, like the financial parts of the pros and cons between inorganic and organic. Organic, it creates a market for businesses. They can make more money. The cons, it's expensive for people in places or just anywhere that they can't afford it. And the pros for non-organic, it's cheap. It's great for to feed big groups of people, nations. But the cons, it's expensive for farmers in India. Is what Shiva talked about earlier. Earlier, but now I'm gonna answer the question about Boer Popkin. I said he probably thinks they are a waste because organics take up a lot of land. But I also like have second thoughts about who's saying these things because they can have investments in these companies, and I don't want to trust someone's opinion who's got hundreds of thousands of dollars into a product. They're not gonna trash their own product. But I think that's it for my organic versus inorganic